Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be continuing our run as Great Britain. Last episode was kind of our starting episodes. We got a lot done in terms of getting some subjugations in terms of Persia and Mexico, and while we were focused a little bit on some of the great game content, specifically expanding in Sindh and also in Punjab a little bit earlier than would have been otherwise kind of optimal, we really haven't gotten to see too much of that. We'll probably see a bit more of that this episode, but last episode I was kind of making the argument slash claim and was focusing on some of the ways in which Great Britain is way stronger than they are in previous patches, having access to a lot of mandate extremely quickly being one of those, and also having access to very, very early having a ton of financial districts. We start with like a 250, which is double France's, and now we're up to 429, and this being a huge driver of actually being able to kick off the economy. A lot of countries will feel sluggish. Great Britain does not feel sluggish in this way, and I made the argument that I didn't think that Great Britain, or I think Great Britain now is maybe one of the strongest starts, or maybe the strongest start, and it hasn't been before. And a lot of people in the comment section of the first video, which has now gotten published, almost as published as the loud street sweeper outside, a lot of people were saying that Great Britain has always been the strongest start, and I just want to clarify kind of my opinion on the matter is I don't think at any point Great Britain has been the strongest start at any point in time in either multiplayer or single player. In multiplayer specifically, up until 1.5, you used to be able to multi-land abuse Great Britain really easily, and the fact that your capital is on a coast made you extremely vulnerable. And then post 1.5, even in this situation, navy size is much less relevant before 1.7, and is still kind of less relevant in 1.7 because you can do various cheese to kind of tie up navies indefinitely in multiplayer. In single player, France has an obscene construction bonus, but not only that, you all have been able to, as either France or USA, just transfer EIC at the very start and then infamy reset via cut down to size. Cut down to size doesn't work in 1.7 anymore, so this opener where you get a kind of UK's strongest feature, which is the EIC, this is no longer present. Instead, if you want to infamy reset, you have to rev and then swap sides, which carries its own risks and is a little bit harder to do in timing. And okay, you could still kind of do it, but you have to play around the fact that you're going to get cut down to size, and so these sorts of things. But UK, the main feature of that being removed makes the likes of France a lot worse. France, you used to just like, in theory, just transfer EIC, take a whole bunch of stuff off Great Britain as your very opener. You have the strongest military open. You have better IG bonuses, and also the potential to form Central Europe. France, I think, has just always been very strong. And then Qing is the other factor where you have a less explosive start, but you have way, way, way more momentum, as pops slash souls are an extremely important factor. This has been, since the migration changes of mass migrations in 1.6, this has changed up quite a bit, but before 1.6, the fact that you have so much available pop in Qing has meant that for the theoretical biggest GDP, Qing has been kind of one of the strongest starts, and I think it's only now that Great Britain is in contention for strongest. I don't think they were even in the conversation before. I think the conversation was France and Great Qing up until 1.5, and after reverse Suez came in, the United States, you can make an argument, but and especially after mass migrations changed, United States gets a lot stronger in 1.6, but I think now in 1.7, now Great Britain's in the conversation. And there's kind of four in the conversation, and we might make a video on this, but let's get into it. Let's continue. We didn't emphasize it too much last episode in our two wars against Great Qing, but the main reason we go for Beijing specifically, in addition to the Kaiping Mining Company, which is quite strong, we get authority, less of a factor now with us getting vassalization in our principal and our power block, but also legitimacy from including the head of state and government plus 18, which is allowing us to be in this new higher legitimate bracket of 75, despite the fact that we do, of course, have nerf taxes, which give minus 20 legitimacy. So we have a little bit of an opportunity to kingmake, and this is actually kind of an inflection point that's probably going to come up in a lot of games where you have an opportunity to help one of these guys out to win. We notice that Austria goes bananas. Of course, this is the Thunderdome patch, and so Austria is probably going to get dogpiled in here anyways, but we can side in Prussia's only going for German leadership. This is a very modest claim. We would kind of like the North German Fed to happen anyways, so we're going to come in here and we're going to ask for a bankroll. Also notably, Austria, for whatever reason, can't offer us a bankroll. I don't think they're currently bankrolling us. If I recall correctly, we are receiving a ton from bankrolls. We're receiving 3 bankrolls currently. These bankrolls are going to crush the Netherlands, USA, and France, but we're going to ask for a bankroll from Prussia, which of course will crush Prussia, but also will allow them to form North German Fed. So if we're going for a world conquest, that does help out quite a bit. I was thinking about it a little bit, and France still might be better for a world conquest because you can get Wallonian as your primary culture, which I think afterwards you can form Central Europe with, and so the fact that you can form Central Europe is a pretty big boon, if I recall correctly. But I still think that this start feels so explosive with Great Britain. We've even added a little bit of military, not a whole lot, mainly just adding artillery to our various armies because we don't start out with a lot of artillery, stuff like this, in order to try and ensure that we can still sway into these types of things for bankrolls, despite the fact that we're on professional army, whereas kind of the meta that is a little bit better than professional army is to be on national militia because you can threaten them with your militia, but so far we have been strong enough to be able to threaten people for bankrolls, and we kind of might just be running away with it in terms of we're going to be getting another 70k here, and once we reach a certain point where all the big powers have bankrolled us at least once, or we've kneecapped them like we're probably going to do with Russia, maybe this episode even, then we should be able to sway for whatever we want, throughout the game. Alright, so this is pretty cute. The East India Company has swapped to being a monarchy, which they don't normally do, and normally you can't reduce autonomy on them until you get the civilizing mission tech, but now we can actually reduce autonomy on them if we want. I think we're not going to, because we don't want all of their subjects generating a whole... We want them to annex their subjects currently, and we were taking a look at stuff, and we thought if we made them a puppet, that would help us for passing no migration controls, but it doesn't help for passing no migration controls. We don't get the 10% success chance, unfortunately. And so really, we wish that we had some sort of way of generating this sort of thing, generating success chance. And I think with creative legislature, this doesn't give us any base support. So really kind of hoping that they eventually get some sort of jingoist leader, or some sort of leader that supports us going no migration controls. I don't think there's actually any ideology that supports it. The jingoists would support some sort of colonial affairs, but this leaves us in a little bit of a weird spot, because we really want to get them onto... We have to somehow get their industrialists into government. And so we might even just straight up regime change them at some point in time, if this is possible to do in terms of diplomatic actions or diplomatic demands. Let's just take a quick look at the lens, because I'm not used to doing this kind of interaction, but regime change might be worth doing. We can't do it because they're a subject of ours, and we could do this if we weren't a sovereign empire, but we're instead the one that is more the ideological union. So that's a little bit interesting that we're seeing that we're reaching a little bit of a hiccup here, in that if we were a different type of central identity, if we were an ideological union, we could get what we want in terms of being able to open up their borders so that we could get all those sweet Indian pops, which we cannot currently get because they are discriminated against. They're not allowed to migrate under migration control laws. So we'll be playing around with their laws, trying to push them in the correct direction, but also we're going to be going civilizing mission a little bit earlier, or way earlier than before, because now it gives a minus infamy generation, minus 25%. It will give us an additional colonial affair institution investment, and that institution, when paired with, as we have, colonial offices 3, allows for minus 5% infamy generation against unrecognized powers. So once we get up to level 3, that'll be minus 15%, so for a total of minus 40%, really allowing us, or even more than minus 40, because base colonization now also gives the same thing. The colonization tech, if we take a look, I think gives a minus 10% now. And so we'll have minus 50% infamy generation against unrecognized power. So we'll really be able to expand quite explosively without pissing people off. And this minus infamy generation, I think, is a bit stronger than minus infamy decay, in the sense that you don't get the relation hit from people from declaring the wars and generating infamy that you get, 50% if they have a shared interest with you, and instead you're just not getting it. And so we're going to push for a civilizing mission way earlier, because we also don't really need a lot of the power that's unlocked by these various things. We're kind of cruising right now, and so allowing us to do stuff for way less infamy, I think, is going to be a little bit more useful for us right now. So we pimp up 500 construction here, really actually running out of places to add construction in terms of our home territories, and looking abroad to places like Transvaal to add. We only have an additional 10 levels that we can add, which we will add right now, which are going to be kind of in our home places that have iron, and then this will be, the iron is completely exhausted here. We also bombed out of passing no health insurance, but that's okay. We can go restricted child labor in particular is going to be a little bit nice, because people who would not normally support it right now, and getting stuff like the bonuses on work ethic is pretty good. Kind of do want to lean into these guys. It's just very, very difficult to do it, but I think that we are going to be able to bring the Intelligentsia up a little bit when we increase the education institution. We got a whole bunch of government administrations to take care of this bureaucracy problem, and we are going to be looking to, increase this really heavy into a whole bunch of different stuff. So happy that we're on elected bureaucrats, because this is pretty good for decreasing the institution cost modifier. Overall, the laws are pretty solid right now. We're just still kind of cruising through a few of them. Yikes. We hate that one. We hate it when that happens. We do not like that. We're going to start funding lobbies in Portugal. We weren't doing this before. We probably should have been doing it, but we have been trying to pull them into our blocks so that we can subjugate them. Currently at plus 156, and I think with the funding of the lobbies, over the course of time, this should give us an ability to bring them in. Also, we're 10 months away from our next governance principle, and I think once we get that, actually, let's just luck stack restricted chat. Okay, never mind, just kidding. But I think we're going to go for external trade too after we get that, and just look to utilize our Diplo here at the very kind of earlier kind of portion of the game to try and make sure that we have really good relations, especially because we like damage relations with Austria, this type of stuff. We're only cordial with France. We would love to get a trade agreement with them, but we can't afford that in terms of the Diplo, and so I think this is going to be pretty strong early on. And one of the powers of Great Britain just seems so strong is that we can fill out our principles really, really quickly, and so we can do stuff kind of where we're like, hey, we like this at this phase of the game, but then we'll slot it out later, and we have so much mandate to work with that we don't really mind doing this kind of swapping around, even though I don't think we stay on construction 1, and I don't think we stay on external trade 2, but being able to slot these on for the early phases of the game does seem to be quite a nice play pattern. Pretty good opportunity here to side in and get Sweden. But if we get Sweden in this way, I'm not sure that they'll be able to. We'll probably just leave them as a protectorate here. But actually, let's wait a tick. I don't think we want to lose a bankroll over this, but we're waiting to see if anyone joins. Doesn't look like anyone's joining, so we're going to ask them to become our protectorate. Of course, we will be able to do quite well in this war. And the foreign powers kind of having good attitudes with us makes them less likely. If they have good attitudes, like if they're genial, or Russia's antagonistic, but it do be like that. Cautious is not so good, but the better the attitudes, the less likely they are to join after we join. It didn't seem like they had an initial joining interest. We don't want to ruin our bankrolls. This is really allowing us to crank up at 552 construction. Quinine is going to be quite useful for us as well here. Going to allow us to colonize some new areas, and then also we will be in on the tech that we are trying to research currently, which is getting the colonial affairs up just a little bit more, which we talked about earlier. So we are getting our first kind of great game conflict here. We saw a war goal for Conquer Quetta and Kabul, which would have kind of rounded out all the rest of the Afghan states. And so we sided in for become protectorate on Kandahar, and Russia just sides against us, kind of raw dog, not really getting anything from it. I don't even think Kabul is a Ah, they did it for Kabul becomes protectorate, which is a little bit awkward because we're going to just full occupy Kabul, and it's not going to be a problem. We don't have an actual front with Russia, and I'm not sure exactly how we're planning on enforcing Russia out. This is a little bit awkward. I think we're just going to conscript up this army over here that we have going, and just look to raid them down. So we're going to need to recruit a little bit more on the Navy, or new Navy guys. I think we're fine with a moderate being in charge. So we're going to put this guy up, and then we are going to send this Navy over. Our Navy's much bigger than theirs. We're going to raid their convoys. We're going to try for a landing, maybe see what we can do. Would have preferred a war where we could choose war goals against Russia, but this is fine enough. We can't add any demands. We're just going to... And nor can we enforce, which is the unfortunate thing. So I think we're going to have to land Russia. I don't think we can land Russia if we don't have any fronts, though, to occupy or distract their troops. Maybe we can land back here and then pull troops over to that front and then try and land their capital. I guess that will be our strategy. Probably going to be a little bit of an expensive war. We'll see how it goes. All right, so we get our additional mandate. So just to show, we're currently at 97 influence, and if we slot in external trade too, we will pop all the way up to 850 influence, which is going to allow us to kind of nurse these positive relations with these GPs kind of in this early phases of the game, where we are looking to create trade agreements. So for example, Prussia, if we were friendly instead of cordial, which we're trending towards anyways, we would probably be able to get a trade agreement. We cannot get a trade agreement with Austria, but if we get up to friendly from cordial, which we are moving in that direction with the improved relations, maybe this attitude will swap. It'll create a catalyst every time we move up a level, and we will move up a level just by getting up to plus 50 relations, and so hopefully then we could get a trade agreement. Again, trying to get a trade agreement with France as well, and so this extra Diplo is going to be really useful in this phase of the game. Currently, the Russia conflict is still escalating. We are handedly going to win this because we can get to the front and they can't, so we're just helping out, but the problem is neither of these guys can be enforced below 0 while the suzerain is participating, so that is going to create a little bit of complications for us because of reasons. We're going to finish up this Sweden stuff and then use the army that's currently in Sweden to land the back of Russia. Actually, maybe we just land the back of Russia with the Indian army here. We're just going to come back here, and this is really the weak point of Russia, generally speaking, is the fact that they don't ever defend this side of things, and so we will be able to land there. We will have 0 chance of landing into a 160 stack army on their capital, though, unless they move a bunch of troops over here to help out. Man, Persia has just been chef's kissing everything for us because they've just been expanding absolutely wildly, and we didn't have to pay any infamy to get them as a subject. And in particular, I think that this is going to... Right now they're taking Hormuz back, which is going to be great, and so we are going to finish secure influence over Persia after we just wait another few years, and the Afghan protectorate, we are going to have all these guys as our subject after this war finishes, and so the great game is almost won for us, I think. Now, we are not going to enforce once we hit 100 here, because we have to get Russia out of the conflict, and so we have to wait now for Russia to decay out. They are at 84 war support. We're only at 78 war support. Why are we ticking down? We're ticking down 1 a tick, and they're ticking down 1.3 a tick because they're partially occupied. And so we should be able to tick them out before they tick us out, but this is just going to be a pure attrition game. And we have maybe something that'll be a little bit exciting. A U.S. Civil War. So this is the Russia special. We've advanced pretty much unopposed up here in the north. We are sending another unit to kind of clean up some of these borders. We sided with America just for an obligation. It seemed a little bit too much for us to try and be able to get a state off of them, but the obligation should be at least somewhat useful. We would have sided with the revolt, except for the USA currently is bankrolling us, and while this bankroll is almost out, it's still going to be useful for us. We're currently getting 4 bankrolls, which is one of the reasons why we're not pushing super hard on getting these gold reserves down, because they're going to drain out as soon as our bankrolls run out, which should be soon enough. Kind of waiting for Russia to blink here and actually move this 160 stack into some place where they could actually make use of it, or we're just going to push them from the other side. We're of course still on minus 100, and they are decaying down a little bit faster than we are at this point. They have war support of 52, we have war support of 58, but but this is truly the grind fest. We've also come down, and we're going for Orania, which is kind of the classic, but not just because it has a ton of gold, but we specifically want to build construction sectors where we have a lot of iron. There is iron in them hills, and this is going to be useful for us for both Orania and Transvaal, and we are running out of states that have iron that we want to build construction sectors in, because the construction sectors, most of the goods that are being purchased off of these are in fact iron, and so we want to, for mappy reasons, build them in places where we have iron. We want to build wood everywhere so wood prices are not as important, and so in order to try and keep the construction sector cranking up, which has just been wild. I can't remember the last time we had 600 construction within the first 10 years. We want to specifically conquer iron states. So this is great. Also, we are getting decreasing costs on unrecognized powers. Generally speaking, we will get an additional -5% infamy once we finish upgrading this. And so going for a recognized power like Orania makes a little bit more sense right now. Spectacularly bad timing for Russia. The Kazakh Khanate event fires, and we just join in for Liberate Ukraine, which is going to be the most damaging war goal we can put in on Russia. They are uncertain because, you know, relatively military strength, but also we already have all this occupied. So when this war pops, we will continue to have all of this occupied, which is going to really work out well for us. We're starting to try and do a landing, but here's what's going to happen is they're going to start pulling people out from here or out from the fronts in order to, because they moved everyone over to here and then they pulled them back as soon as we did a landing. And so what we're going to do is, if the landing's looking like it's not going so well, which it's currently a little bit iffy, we do have a little bit more morale, we'll just cancel the landing, and in doing so we'll force them to juggle their troops back to where we're landing in the capital, so they won't be able to properly oppose us over here where we have quite a decent chunk of power. Still waiting on this front to form. Ooh, looks like Persia joined in on the Kazakh Khanate side. Perfect. So we're going to be able to have another front down here. Currently, they're not in the best of shape. We have China helping out the USA. USA is actually having a hell of a time from the conscripts from the liberal revolt, finally like bringing up, because almost all their pop is in there. We definitely want to preserve the USA for at least a little while longer, and this is the guy that we have an obligation with, so maybe we actually have to reconsider what we're doing here. So I think we're going to actually cancel this for now. Persia is going to be able to help us out quite a bit, and then we will dedicate this landing to coming in onto New York, which I think is going to be the capital of the USA liberal revolt, almost certainly. Oh, I guess it could be Penn. Penn would also make sense. Yeah, Penn's the capital. Yeah, okay, so Penn's the capital. So we'll just put in a landing on the capital specifically, instead of trying to resolve... Ooh, we can't, because Pennsylvania doesn't have a port. Everyone remembers when Pennsylvania didn't have a port, right? So we'll just land New Jersey instead. It's going to have a little bit less combat width, and if they want to assign guys to that front, then they can. We have the Shadow Realm Army coming in over here. I don't think we want the Shadow Realm Army there. I think we want the Shadow Realm Army to come over here, and start looking to fill in these gaps over here, just in case anything weird happens, and then maybe help out the Kazakh Khanate. But this is looking like the episode where Russia just kind of gets shellacked, and I imagine we win the great game off this, like, this exchange of affairs of like the Afghan protectorate securing influence over Persia, and we're kind of poised to go after the Sikh Empire after this to expand British India, so things are looking really nice for us. Not sure if I've ever been more happy to get modern sewage, except there has to be a time that I've been more happy to get modern sewage, but the +5 construction sector max level is going to be super good for us. I think what we're going to do is actually we're going to switch onto steel frame building from Civilizing Mission. Civilizing Mission, we do have the full cost of the tech, the full base cost of the tech done with 12,500, and so as stuff nat spreads to us, which to be fair, nothing is nat spreading to us at this current juncture in terms of this, but as stuff nat spreads, it will make this cheaper, and so we will get steel frame buildings probably first instead, and then someone's going to research organized sports or like some of these other techs, and we will get a discount on Civilizing Mission. This is something we could do. I don't know if it's as essential that we just beeline Civilizing Mission, because I don't think we're going to get it in time for wanting to go for some infamy play on Punjab, and steel frame building is also just going to absolutely be spectacular for us. We could go back in for some of this other tech, but I think that we just generally want to be trying to go ahead of time so that we can actually benefit from tech spread, because currently having a little bit of trouble benefiting from tech spread. But we're going to put that in on steel frame, and then we are going to, of course, expand the construction sectors in our primary places where we have various edicts, which is going to be really nice because we were having way too much money here, suffering from success. Absolutely brutal for Russia. The war versus the Kazakh Khanate starts with their capital being occupied. We enforce on the Afghan war, and we see here we still have all of our occupation. Now, this is kind of the way it should be anyways, but it does kind of fiddle with the fronts a little bit. It looks like some of the fronts were preserved. That seems good enough, but they are decaying down really quick because they start with the capital, already occupied. Now we can't, we have to specifically occupy this as well, otherwise we will not be able to finish the wars, so we will put that in. But things are looking a little bit grim for the USA over here, except for as long as we control the capital of the USA won't capitulate out, and these guys can capitulate out, but we're definitely going to have to kind of about face and come back over here. And I think what we're going to do is, let's see if we can get some conscripts up just a little bit more, and we are going to actually utilize our conscript-only army that's kind of normally just for scaring people. We'll kind of decrease this so we can actually increase up the infantry so that they will be able to come help, because boy oh boy do these guys need help. We're just looking for someone with a decent trait. We're going to use heavy barrage here, we're going to use defend front here, we're going to mobilize all the conscripts, and we are going to move these guys to this front to hopefully be able to hold off for the USA, kind of the incoming stuff. And finally, we are also losing money now that we've added a bunch of construction. We're up to 712 construction. This is going to be really good. And since we're going steel frame building, we don't want to add too much construction, but instead what we're going to do, this also gives us an additional max level capacity. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on building some of the goods that go into steel frame buildings so we can swap as many as possible just as soon as it finishes, which includes building up glass in places like Lancashire, where we have notably lead, and building up explosives in places like Midlands, where we have sulfur. We're still focusing on these two places specifically, but this will help us out for this transition, just trying to smooth things out so that we can transition faster and probably go up to maybe 1,200 construction when we finish. Well, actually, we're going to be losing some bankrolls. 1,200 is maybe too ambitious, but a lot of construction. Very strange belly up type of war where it looks like we're not going to be able to help the Kazakh Khanate out enough, and they're going to end up enforcing, or Russia's going to enforce all the war goals, because Orta-Zhuj, for whatever reason, it won't count unless we occupy it, and they got occupied in their capital. We're trying to push into it. We did a landing. We have their capital, or next to their capital, kind of as a strategic objective, but I'm not sure if we will be, or Orta-Zhuj is the strategic objective. I'm not sure we're going to be able to push in fast enough here, despite the fact that we are sitting on their capital. However, Russia will decay down. Once they capitulate out, Russia will decay down very, very quickly on Liberate Ukraine, and I'm pretty sure that this war goal will stay in, so we'll at least be able to do that. We also reduced autonomy on Persia, which is going to be fantastic for us. We have a few separatist movements, but other than that, things are going really well. We notably got Netherlands as a subject because we swayed in. We didn't even need to yo-yo sway, we just regular swayed in for become subject on the regular Netherlands. They, of course, got absolutely crippled from the bankroll that they had been sending us, but I'm pretty sure once they become our subject, this will invalidate the bankroll, and so we will be draining out the money pretty quickly here, and so we might even have to rake back construction, but for now we can continue to cruise with 700. Alright, so we didn't get everything that we wanted, but at the very least we are getting a liberate on Ukraine, which is going to be nice. They did kind of manage to control Central Asia, but we can still disrupt the Caucasus, and we do finish the entry for Persia, bringing us closer and closer to winning the great game. We can also enforce the Aberdeen Act yet again, and generate ourselves a little bit of influence, which is going to be a little bit more useful than the authority, I think. We still are building up bureaucracy. I'm a little surprised to see it that high, but we are upgrading basically all of our institutions to max level with the exception of Social Security, because who needs that? And so we will also be helping out the Ottomans. We got them to transfer Tunis, so now we have both Tripolitania and Tunis. And also, Ottomans are probably not very long for being a GP if they're not already out of being GP already, which will maybe give us us opportunities to yo-yo sway them in order to get them as a subject if they become a minor power, kind of like what happened with the Netherlands, which is now our subject, hoping that we can maybe get something like that going with France, or sorry, Spain. Spain's decayed down to being a major power, which is unfortunate. We would prefer them actually as a great power. That way they could bankroll us at some point, because our bankrolls is running out. Oh, we get to keep the Netherlands bankroll? That's obscene. Despite them being our subject. That's crazy. Also, this war has just kind of been a status quo type war. Just as long as, the District of Columbia doesn't get run over, we should be kind of in fine shape, just stalling out the front lines here. And so we should just be fine with our obligation. We can finally, after a lot of construction and increasing of lobbies and this sorts of stuff, we can finally invite Portugal into our power block, which is going to be nice. We cannot use the block power on them yet because I think it uses 60 juice. But if we scroll down, we will see that we have this potential block leader action of subjugate. We just need to have 60 cohesion, otherwise we won't be able to do this, but it will just make them our subject as long as they are major power or lesser, which Portugal is, and so this is going to be one way we can try and get them. Now, we could probably try and do the similar thing with Ukraine. So what we're going to do with Ukraine, which is newly released, is we are going to start funding lobbies with them, and we are also going to engage in quite a bit of trade with them, looking to maximize the trade routes. Of course, they have a bunch of janked up trade because they were just yeeted out of the Russian market, and so we should be able to get really nice trade routes with them anyways, and try and get a trade agreement. Also, by increasing the trade, we're going to increase a lot of trade, try and do a lot of trade routes. We will be getting more Diplo because for every single level of trade we have, we are getting 2 Diplo. Whereas our trade centers, we have 290 trade centers, and for every single level we're getting a little bit of Diplo from our external trade, which is going to, at this point in the game, I think be quite strong. We will be getting another mandate. I think at some point we're going to swap out construction and external trade, but for now it's going to play quite nicely. Okay, we put in so many trade agreements. Nearly for every single good, we can put in a profitable trade agreement, and so we get, profitable trade route for Ukraine. So we are going to cancel our lobby with Portugal, which is going to be a little bit less important now, and get enough Diplo refunded to be able to put in a trade agreement with Ukraine, which is going to be fantastic, and we will be able to see that they will start trending towards our bloc quite a bit more in terms of our influence here. Austria also has a decent amount of influence, but what we are going to do is we are going to try and wheel and deal and get investment rights, invest specifically in the capital. The capital's got a whole bunch of good stuff for investing, and try and pull them into our bloc. But I think we're going to conclude the episode here. We kind of got quite a bit done this episode, but the main substantive one, I think, was releasing Ukraine from Russia. We also... Well, we tripled construction, so maybe that's also a pretty big deal. Really, really hard and fast come up. I'm not sure we will ever get 4 bankrolls simultaneously again, which is kind of what funded this come up. We are currently 300k of our, budget is coming from bankrolls, and we are minus 200k, and we're already on max taxes. So this is not a sustainable thing. But this was a pretty insane crank up. I can't remember the last time we had 700 construction like this early. Really, really kind of coming out the gate strong here. And we did some great game stuff. We, secured Persia. We're well on the way. We should be winning the game next episode. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do the YouTube algorithm thing. There's links below for Discord and socials and this type of stuff. And other than that, have a good one.